go on.
No, I just want to open it up really to the congregation, as it were. Would you like to ask any questions? Anybody got any burning questions they'd like to ask the company?
When can I stop being a volunteer?
There must be one.
Yes, of course.
How do you find young children react? Because we have had occasions, I can talk from experience here, where young children have come to the Christmas shows and they haven't understood it and they've been frightened. So how do you find that children?
Oh, they're all like that. I'm joking. There's a moment of real seriousness there, isn't there? No. It's, we generally find that if somebody's afraid of a mask, it's not a child thing, it is a personality thing. If somebody gets upset by a mask, and there will be, I have to be honest with you, I think in our whole career we've had one or two people that's made it obvious that they just don't get on with masks, which out of an audience of thousands, over the years, I think is not a bad record. We did a week with this show at the Gulbenkian in Canterbury, and we had one person who wrote in and said, my child didn't like it, and suggested that this should be upped, the age level should be up for it. And I think they were, much as we appreciate people's feedback, I think they were wrong, because we've suggested the age of 7, and we've had 5-year-olds come along and 4-year-olds, and people say, why don't you lower the age? And we put it at 7 because we know that people will bring their 6-year-olds. If people don't like masks, I think it is a personality thing and not an age thing. We have adults who go, "Ugh, I don't want to try that on," and I think we're quite honest with people beforehand that they're coming to a mask show, so they normally know. And ultimately, and we find this a lot, children are actually a lot more open to the experience than adults. Now, you've probably found that in your experience. It's like children need to be slightly frightened, and they judge the parameters themselves. And I hold up as a really good example for this is Roald Dahl. And I would say if you wanted to describe what it's as if Roald Dahl has written Christmas Carol. It's a theatrical version of that. So there is, we haven't pulled punches on this. It's a dark show. Somebody sees their death. And yet there is something about Mask and Puppet, which is, it does the equivalent of folk tales. If we just for a moment imagine Hansel and Gretel, let's just pick apart that story. It contains cannibalism, parents wanting to get rid of their children, either by abandoning them or open to certain death or whatever. They've got witches. You've got, slightly more disturbingly, children killing adults. And yet that's a story that we're quite prepared to tell our 4-year-olds. And once again, I think Mask and Puppet does exactly the same thing on stage. If you took that wrapper off this, I would say that the way we did the show would be above 7, or 6, or 5. But it works. It's because it takes it elsewhere. And it doesn't mean it's any less hard-hitting in what it does. It is a very emotional show to go through, and I can, it's not a frippery. We don't do those kind of shows. I mean, the show that we did before was about a village that wanted to kill one of its number for an ultimate, but you can do it. It is a folktale kind of show. And it works the same way. It's safe, but it's also, it's another world. It's a little bit, if you remember the old Boris Karloff Frankenstein movie, the sets wobble, you can see the makeup, it's black and white, and yet once you've accepted that and you've gone into that world, you're totally at the prey of that world. You don't know what the rules are, which is what makes Mask, it's very similar, it's what makes it so beguiling. And yet at the end of it, it's safe, because you've come out of that world and it's a world that you can put to one side. And very much like folktale, it will leave its messages for you to digest at your leisure. It's not shock theatre. We use humour a lot more. It's actually funnier than darker.
On a practical level also, on a couple of occasions, someone's phoned up and said, my child is unsure about the masks. And we've invited
We'll give them a tour before.
Yeah, we've asked them to come and have a look at the masks, try them on, so there's no apprehension there.
The start of the piece is very intentional in terms of making these accessible to an audience, so that
Yeah.
they're not threatening, that you're not seeing grotesque Halloween masks, you're seeing friendly, approachable characters. And that's very, very important, that when we come out there, we're low-key and we kind of make sure the audience are okay, and then we can go to some slightly darker places. But there's nothing that's too terrifying. I mean, the ghosts are quite extreme and quite, you know, dark, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's a shocking piece. It has its dark moments, but by that point, hopefully the audience are with us and they feel
I think
safe.
you feel in safe hands.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And it's a thing that my personal theory about what happens is when an audience is first presented with a mask, you're essentially showing something which is, I mean, it's not human, is it? I mean, it's, you're looking at a very strange face, and you're being taken. What it's stimulating is essentially fight or flight in the audience, and you're not sure whether to run away or hit it and eat it. And so one of the things that we're very conscious of is that you have to make people laugh to start off with. As soon as you've got that sense of laugh, the audience comes together very, very quickly. And there are those techniques that we're using. So it's not...
There's an element of the cartoon about this, in that it isn't quite reality, but it's something that's quite familiar. I mean, all children know and love cartoons, and so they know it's not real, but it's accessible, and they invest in imagination in that. So we're kind of within that realm somewhat.
And I do sympathise with children who find it difficult. I mean, I remember my childhood was blighted, I think, by waking up one Christmas morning and finding a punch puppet at the bottom. Oh no, it was a clown puppet, even worse. I like that. And that ruined my Christmas day. I was in tears. I was then at a Punch and Judy show, which I was in tears for my birthday party, which I spent in the kitchen.
It was just last week.
Do you remember? Yeah, that was last week. Yeah. So it might be that I'm in this world now to exorcise all of that. So we are very, very sensitive to that. We are very. I do believe that we know what we're doing and we can. I mean, there may be one or two. I hope not, but there may be one or two that.
It's very rare.
Yes, it is a rare thing.
Just picking up on that comment, I mean, one of the other things that we've done is explore different languages, and I'm just thinking back to Heidi, for example, when goat speak became the thing. Can you perhaps just talk about the kind of accessibility of the language and the way that you talk?
What, in goat speak? Do you know what? It's a lot of Dickens. There's a lot of Dickens in there, but we haven't really found that a problem. In fact, it's actually we've had quite a lot of compliments on the adaptation. And I think because Dickens is not renowned for his brevity, there are moments when in the adaptation I've taken it more towards Dylan Thomas, if you think about Under Milk Wood. It moves into that kind of world, but I've taken phrases from the Dickens and done that to keep things moving, and the music moves it as well. But the language, we haven't really taken too many prisoners on that, and the reason for that is, I mean, Mark and I, our father is an opera singer, and was an opera singer, he's retired now, but we were brought up going to operas, which as, 4 or 5-year-old, you don't understand. But it's a Gothic experience for you, and this is part of the ethos of what I believe, and what I believe the company should do, is that I think there is a type of theatre which is aimed at kids, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there is a point at which they think that's for children, I'm not going to go to the theatre anymore, I'm going to play with my Xbox, or whatever. And for me, because when I went to the theatre I didn't understand everything, I realised it was this amazing experience, and opera it's a huge, overwhelming experience, and I saw people getting things that I didn't get. It made me want to come back, because I thought, I need to understand that, I've got to come back. And part of what we do is that, I think because it's masked, and because there is enough there, I mean there's plenty there for kids, even if they don't understand everything. And I don't think everybody, if you think about your bedtime stories when you were a kid, did you understand everything then? If you were read, I remember being read Alice in Wonderland at quite a young age and being slightly confused by quite a lot of that. But nevertheless, it's one of my abiding memories. I don't think you should move theatrically at the speed of the slowest ship. And I don't think that stops you appreciating it. And I think that's why we have a reputation of being able to entertain 5-year-olds up to whatever age.
Well, at the same time, that you have this textual language, which is quite complicated in a way, but with these masks, there's a very strong, clear, physical, visual language.
That's
so
true, yeah.
we're telling the same story with
Our
our
bodies,
bodies and our spacings as we are with our words, and that's quite important. We performed our first show in the run without surtitles, and there was a degree of confusion, but people watched the piece, you know, and probably understood very little language-wise, but were with us and enjoyed the piece.
So it works, and it's, you know, that's a happy accident of masks, because there is a physical language that's going alongside what's being said. It's very clear, and it's about rhythm. I mean, what we're really pleased about and very proud of is that we're coming to a venue which is associated with world-class music. And we were talking earlier, weren't we, about that rhythm is not just in the music, it's in the language itself. And I love reading Dickens is like you can hear him on your shoulder. And to simplify that language is a crime. And kids, I think that kids need to hear that. They need to hear the power of somebody who is an incredible wordsmith. And it works. It does work in this show. And it's you hear phrases which are just, you know, will stay with you for life, hopefully. So yeah, I don't really make any apologies for that. I think just as a coda to this before I finish, as an adult, you're coming in and seeing things with a child's eyes, with masks. You're being taken back into a world which you think you've left behind, and I think there's something very interesting about that. And I think that's why there's almost a change of consciousness when you're watching this world, which at some point would be very interesting for a psychologist to have a look at. But it does leave people on a kind of high. The audience it's similar to music itself. It will take people up onto another level.